In Generation 2 competitive, Snorlax is probably the best Pokemon. After all, in these games, normal types are fantastic. Plus, Snorlax has some top-tier stats. It has 160 HP, 110 attack, 65 defense, which is not great, and 30 speed is very bad, but 65 special attack is serviceable, and 110 special defense is incredible, especially when combined with Snorlax's move pool, because this thing learns Amnesia at level 8. Now here I should clarify a little bit about this move, because in Generation 1 it raised your special stat, which was a combined stat, but in Generation 2, Amnesia only raises your special defense. So Snorlax's already outrageous special defense can become better. Then at level 15, Snorlax learns Defense Curl, so it can shore up its weak defenses. So at this point, it's not going to be knocked out by anything, and yeah, its 30 speed doesn't matter anymore as a result. Plus, at level 22, if you want to make its 110 base attack even better, you get access to Belly Drum. So how this move works is it cuts your HP in half, but it gives you +6 in your attack stat. Honestly, just because of this move, I want to do this playthrough. Like, I think Snorlax is going to completely slam its way through this entire game with very few moments where it struggles. And if you have any doubts about that, let's just look at Snorlax's TM and HM learn set. Because this thing, it basically gets everything, like, it gets everything that matters. It learns the standard normal type moves like Headbutt and Return, then it gets awesome coverage moves like Earthquake, which utilizes its attack stat, and then it gets great special moves like all of the punches and all of the tutor moves. So if anything, what could stand in Snorlax's way? Well, first of all, it's a slow growth rate Pokemon, so it is going to level up at a Slugma's pace. And other than that, I'm kind of at a loss. Like, this thing is just really good. It's actually so good that I think it just might be able to get a better time than Lapras, potentially Lugia, and maybe even Ho-Oh. But to find out, we're going to have to do the playthrough, so let's get into it. The rules are that I can only use my starter in battle, no items in battle except for held items, I'm not allowed to use glitches or exploits, and I also can't use the TM for double team until level 100, but yeah, this thing's not going to need it, believe me. Now, on the early routes of the game, I am going to defeat all of the trainers because I need as much experience as possible because of its growth rate. And another disappointing fact about Snorlax in the early game is that it does get Amnesia before Defense Curl. There aren't very many special attackers in the early game outside of the Bellsprouts in, well, Sprout Tower. And no, those things don't even put a small scratch on Snorlax. So it would have really been much better if I got Defense Curl for Falkner. But in the end, will this small inconvenience really matter? I don't think so, but let's see. Falkner leads with Pidgey, I go for Tackle, and it knocks it out in one hit. Okay, that was a critical hit. Maybe the Pidgeotto will put up a little bit more of a fight. It goes for Gust, does 5 damage. My Tackle does almost half, goes for another Gust, gets a critical hit, but yeah, Snorlax doesn't care. My Tackle takes it to red, it tries to Gust again, but I knock it out. And with that, I have earned myself the first badge. And with it comes a 12.5% boost to my attack stat, making Snorlax's already outrageously good attack even better. And I get the TM for Mud Slap, which Snorlax can learn. This is the mandatory moment for a sad Gligar. Okay, let's move on. So next is Union Cave. Obviously, I'm going to teach Mud Slap for this portion of the game. There are some trainers with poison types on this route, as well as some trainers with rock and poison types in Union Cave. When I exit it, there's this hiker here. His name is Hiker Anthony, and he has a Machop, which knows Low Kick. By the way, in Generation 2, Low Kick is a 50 base power move with a 30% chance to flinch. Still, it's super effective against Snorlax, so I just want to skip him. I successfully make it by him and move on to Azalea Town. And here in Slowpoke's Well, we really start seeing evidence of Snorlax's slow growth rate. Like, it's only level 15. When I did my Azumarill playthrough, it was like level 18 just after this area. So yeah, Snorlax is starting to lag behind. But it has now learned Defense Curl, and I think that that's all that I'm going to need to take on Bugsy. He leads with Metapod, and if this fight turns out to be a problem for Snorlax because of Scyther's Fury Cutter, I can just try again and then set up Defense Curl here on the Metapod. However, since this is my first attempt, I'm just going to try to be a little bit more risky and see how Snorlax does going full offensive using only Tackle. I finish off the Kakuna, and Scyther comes out. It hits Fury Cutter, which does 5 damage. Okay, so looks like Bugsy's going to be about as difficult as Falkner. However, Fury Cutter is gaining power, and this thing becomes intimidating very quickly. I take Scyther to red, recover into green with a berry, and then Fury Cutter hits for massive damage, taking Snorlax down to 9 hit points. But that's enough. I knock Bugsy's ace out on the next turn, and Snorlax is victorious. Okay, so I've got 2 badges, and I have no resets. Up next is the rival as I try to leave Azalea Town. Now he has a Ghastly, and Snorlax typing does not match up particularly well against this thing. However, I do have Mud Slap. Ghastly outspeeds using Hypnosis, it misses, I hit with Mud Slap, and it takes Ghastly down to red health. Okay, so I'm going to finish it on the next turn. But Ghastly outspeeds and puts Snorlax to sleep. Very fitting. And here, there is a very unfortunate consequence of the fact that Snorlax is a normal type. Ghastly's only damage-dealing move is Lick, and it knows that this move is a ghost type and can't affect Snorlax. So instead of using it, it goes for Spite, which starts to drain Mud Slap's PP. Uh-oh, this could get bad really quickly. It reduces my PP by 5 on the first turn, so I only have 4 left. I switch into Defense Curl, hoping that I'll wake up and it won't reduce more of my PP, but Snorlax keeps sleeping, and now I only have 1 use of Mud Slap left. But Ghastly goes first, reduces my PP, and now I can't damage it. So I actually just froze here for a moment. You can see that the timer is still running, and I was like, what do I do? Do I try to deplete all my moves and use Struggle to knock this thing out? I probably could win just because Ghastly can't really damage me until it's using Struggle. Plus, it's going to use some Spites to deplete more of my PP, but I have a total of 95 power points, so this just seems like it's going to take way too long, and as a result, I take my first reset here. I'm pretty sure because Mud Slap lowers accuracy that in the next fight, I will just be able to make the Ghastly miss Hypnosis, and this does play out. So I move on to the Zubat. I actually don't knock it out with 1 tackle, I have to take 2, and as a result, Snorlax gets confused. Bayleaf is next. It sees that it doesn't have a good damage range with Razor Leaf, so it tries to go for Poison Powder, misses, and then it switches into Razor Leaf, which is doing so little because of my special defense. So I knock it out, and now I'm moving on to the Forest. And in here, Snorlax gets access to a huge move upgrade, because I can replace Tackle with Headbutt, and this doubles my effective power, plus it improves my accuracy, taking it up from 95% to 100%. So it's time to take care of all the errands that I have to do in Goldenrod City. I'm sure a lot of you have seen my videos before, so you probably know what I'm up to here. So I want to just take this time to talk a little bit about the strategy that I have to implement for Whitney. So previously at Bugsy, Fury Cutter was very scary, and Whitney's Miltank functions in a similar way with Rollout. While Headbutt is going to be doing excellent damage, and I could use Defense Curl to shore up my defenses, what I really think is going to be the best play is instead to just level up on the trainers in the surrounding areas so that Snorlax learns Belly Drum. And I think that this is going to be better because it's going to minimize the number of turns that I'm in battle, and it'll make the fight overall much faster. As I defeat the 1 mandatory trainer in Whitney's gym, Snorlax just barely doesn't level up to 22, so I decide to face the 1 trainer with 3 Jigglypuffs right in front of Whitney. This way I get to 22, I can learn Belly Drum, and in this case I'm going to teach it in the place of Amnesia. There is no move reminder in Generation 2, so this move will be gone forever, but I think that's okay because Snorlax already has an amazing special defense stat. Now that I have access to the Drums of War, let's take on Whitney. She leads with Clefairy, and as long as this thing doesn't use a 1-hit KO move with Metronome, I should be fine to set up here. I use Belly Drum, maximizing my attack stat, shrug off a double slap, and then I use Headbutt to knock the fairy out. Next is Miltank. Now none of its moves are going to knock Snorlax out in a single turn. It goes for Rollout, which does 6 damage. Okay, 1 more damage than Bugsy, and then I hit with Headbutt, and that takes the cow down. So Snorlax has earned itself its 3rd badge. This one gives a boost to my speed stat, but something else that isn't very well known about Generation 2 is that the badges all give a type-based boost as well. So this one gives a 12.5% boost to the damage of normal type moves. And yeah, that's gonna be really good for Snorlax. So now it has a 12.5% boost from Falkner's badge, and a 12.5% boost when using normal moves from Whitney's badge. Heading north of Goldenrod City, I just want to mention that I stopped by and pick up the TM for Rollout. This is because Snorlax has access to the Defense Curl Rollout combination, and I might want it later in the game against a trainer like Lance or Red, but Rollout by itself and in the wrong situation isn't very good, so I don't really want to teach it to Snorlax when it learns it through Level Up. Next, I have to take on Sudowoodo. This is mandatory for me in all of my first playthroughs with Pokemon. I just think things are more fun that way. This strange fake tree just like drops the ball today. Well, it actually drops the rocks in all the wrong places, misses a bunch, then finally hits me for a little bit of damage. Ugh, it actually hits me again, takes me down to 12 hit points. It knows low kick, by the way, so I actually could have lost here, but I managed to defeat it. With it cleared out of the way, I have a choice to make. Do I go left or do I go right? And in this case, I almost always just immediately go to Ecruteak City, but with Snorlax, I am going to go back through Violet City, all the way back to the first route of the game, and pick up the pink bow, so that I can increase Snorlax's normal type damage by another 10%. By the way, these boosts are all lining up in a big chain of multiplication, so they all compound with each other. Now you might think that this is a big waste of time because I have to walk all the way back, but I can actually just use the Abra that I picked up in the game corner to teleport back to Violet City, so really I only have a small amount of walking. I grab the Hardstone, and then I head into Ecruteak City. Here I have to defeat all the Kimono girls. They're going to be really easy for Snorlax, and with them out of the way I get access to the HM for Surf. Now Snorlax does learn this move, but I don't think that giving it a special move this early on, especially one that I can't delete until I get to Blackthorn City, is a good idea. Now I'm sure some of you are interested in playing your own Generation 2 challenges, so if you are, here's a small trick that you can do with Abra. To get the magnet to boost the power of electric type moves, you can jump down this little ledge coming south from Ecruteak City. This kid is the one that gives it to you, and they're only here on Sunday. Thing is, you don't want to walk through the grass like I start to do. After you receive it from them, you can just use Abra to teleport back to Ecruteak City, but today I actually forgot to do something. So I am going to backtrack all of the way to Goldenrod City so that I can buy the TMs for the punches. Also, while I'm here, Snorlax's friendship is high enough so I can pick up the TM for return. And this trip isn't that much wasted time because I can just use Abra to teleport back to Ecruteak City when I'm done. Next, I clear out all the spinning and mandatory trainers on the route west of Ecruteak City, and then I teleport back and head into Burn Tower. Here, I have to face the rival, and he leads with Haunter, which is a little bit scary for Snorlax. At this point, I've taught Ice Punch, but I still think that Mud Slap is going to be my best damage against it. After all, Snorlax has a high attack stat, and Haunter has a low defense stat. Unfortunately, the Ghost is faster, so it puts a curse on me before I knock it out. Magnemite's next, it takes 4 times damage and goes down in a single hit, and then Ice Punch finishes the Zubat. Bayleaf is next, but I freeze it and knock it out on the second turn, so despite the curse, that was an easy battle. With him out of the way, it's time to head into Morty's gym, and you might be wondering now, what about Hidden Power? After all, Hidden Power Ground would be much better than Mud Slap. But here's the thing about that. Number one, I'm getting really tired of just Hidden Power solving every Pokemon's problems in these Johto playthroughs. But more than that is just the fact that, I don't think Snorlax needs it. I just set this Snorlax to have perfect DVs and was just like, I don't need Hidden Power. Belly Drum and Headbutt are going to be more than enough for 99% of the playthrough. I'm sure that I can just get through Morty with Mud Slap. So let's see how it goes. He leads with Ghastly, and of course this thing is faster, so it puts a curse on me, and then I knock it out with Mud Slap. Now if I don't manage to knock out the rest of his Pokemon with a single hit, I am going to take 25% damage from Curse each turn. I do take damage against the first Haunter, but luckily I knock it out without it landing a Hypnosis. It even had 2 shots. Gengar's next. He goes for Mean Look first turn. Good job wasting your turn, Morty. And unfortunately, my Mud Slap doesn't do half. I take Curse damage, Gengar uses Hypnosis, Snorlax wakes up with its Mint Berry, my next Mud Slap takes Gengar to Orange, and then it goes for another Hypnosis, which puts Snorlax to sleep, and as a result, I lose the fight. Okay, so of course Hidden Power Ground would have been better here, I realize that. But this isn't the worst situation ever, because I can just head to Olivine City and clear out the Lighthouse, getting more levels in the process. After all, if I just manage my PP effectively, I will be able to teleport back to Ecruteak City and lose very little time. I make sure to make the mandatory stop to say hi to Dennis. You can all say hi to him in the comments. And then I head back to Morty's gym. Now for this fight, I give Snorlax the Magnet and teach it Thunder Punch in the place of Ice Punch. I did this because I don't have access to the Nevermelt Ice yet, so I can't boost Ice Punch's damage. A benefit of doing more training means that Snorlax is actually faster than the first Ghastly, and I knock it out with a single Thunder Punch. Next is Haunter. It curses me and then I knock it out, but in Generation 2, when you knock the Pokemon out, you don't actually take any curse damage. So I've made it to Gengar with full health. However, the problem here is that now I don't have the Mint Berry, so it puts me to sleep, and then I take curse damage and Dream Eater damage. I wake up, survive on 1 health, but yeah, it's not enough. So let's try this fight without the magnet and instead take the mint berry. I can still one-hit the first Ghastly, and then because the Haunter is dealing damage to itself with Curse, I can also knock it out. So I get back to the Gengar with full health. It goes for Hypnosis, I wake up, hit a Thunder Punch doing less than half. It tries Hypnosis again, but misses. That's a little bit of luck for me. It tries again, and that's a lot more luck for me because Hypnosis misses again. I knock Gengar out, Haunter is last, and because of its moves, it can't damage Snorlax, so I take it out over 2 turns, and with that, I've earned myself the Fog Badge. Now, the intended order of gym leaders in Johto over the next portion of the game is Chuck, then Jasmine, then Price. But things don't always work out that way in playthroughs. However, it is nice to be able to defeat Chuck next, because after I earn his badge, I can use Fly. I'm not sure why in this game they made it after the 5th badge when you get access to this useful utility, because in Generation 1 you get it after the 3rd badge. That seems to make much more sense. They kind of doubled down on this in Generation 3 and made it so that you had to defeat Winona, which is the 6th gym leader, before you can use Fly, and I find that so frustrating. Unfortunately for Snorlax though, the fighting type is super effective against it, so it might have problems against Chuck. His lead is a Primeape, and it's not particularly strong, so I figured that I could set a Belly Drum here to max out my attack stat. This way I can ensure that I one-hit his following 2 Pokemon when I hit, but this turns out not to be a good strategy because then the Primeape moves first, hits Karate Chop, dealing a lot of damage. Snorlax does survive, but then the Poliwrath moves first, and it actually hits a Dynamic Punch, so that's my 4th reset. However, there is another way to approach this fight. I just use Headbutt on the first turn to knock the Primeape out in a single hit. Next is Poliwrath, and I can either use Thunder Punch here or Headbutt, but because I'm using the pink bow, my attack stat is higher, and Headbutt has a chance to flinch, I think it makes more sense to use it. I don't get the flinch, Poliwrath hits another Dynamic Punch, and yeah, it gets a critical hit, so Snorlax faints. But without that critical hit, I am going to win. In this case, Poliwrath hits a 3rd consecutive Dynamic Punch, but Snorlax survives this one, uses Headbutt through confusion, and Poliwrath goes down. That was a bit bumpy, but they were fast fights, so I didn't lose that much time, and now I have access to Fly. I use it to take me back to Ecruteak City, and then I head east towards Mahogany Town. The next section of the game features a lot of monotony because I have to beat the Rocket plotline. However, Snorlax is really lagging behind in levels. It's starting this section of the game at level 33, so I guess all the extra trainer battles here are useful experience. At this point in the playthrough, Snorlax will have enough friendship that Return will start to do more damage than Headbutt. So I make this switch, and with it comes an effective power boost of 19 points. Pretty good. This is going to continue to increase as well as Snorlax's friendship goes up. Also, when I hit level 36, I have the chance to learn both Snore and Rest. I am not going to learn Snore today because I don't think it's that useful, but I will learn Rest. After all, this is like my favorite move, and it actually pairs pretty well with Belly Drum. Now I'm ready to face Price. He leads with Seal, Return one-shots it, okay. Next is Dugong, Return one-shots it as well. Last is Piloswine, and Return does not one-shot it, but it uses Blizzard, and look at how much damage it does. It does like nothing. And then just to frustrate me, he uses a Hyper Potion, and then I knock it out over the next 2 turns. Okay, Price is easy as always. I decided to run a couple errands next. I give Jasmine the secret potion, healing Amphi. Then I go to Violet City where I buy some escape ropes. These are useful for getting out of caves later on and saving a bit of time. I also pick up the rare candy across the pond here. And then I head to Goldenrod City where I surf south of the city, pick up the nugget and the rare candy. And then I go to the hidden area where I defeat the cool trainers and grab myself the soft sand. This will be useful for Earthquake later on. With that out of the way, I head to Jasmine's gym and I teach Snorlax Ice Punch in the place of Thunder Punch. She leads with a Magnemite, and I do not really have a good move here. Yes, a resisted return is my best choice. That means Magnemite can paralyze me. Normally this is awful because it cuts your speed, but Snorlax isn't too worried about its speed. I get through both of the electric types with more than half health left over. Then Steelix hits an Iron Tail, which does quite a bit. My Ice Punch does more than half. Steelix hits another Iron Tail. And then Ice Punch fails to knock the Steelix out. However, that's okay because I know she's going to use a Hyper Potion, so I can use Rest and heal as well. But then check this out, I get so unlucky. The next 2 Iron Tails that Steelix uses lower Snorlax's defense, and as a result, it knocks me out. So there's actually a better way to do this fight. First Magnemite comes out, I know it can't knock me out, so just Belly Drum first turn, set up my attack stat, then use Rest, curing Paralysis. After all, that thing always goes for Thunder Wave on the first turn. I can survive all of its Thunderbolts because I have good special defense, and at this point I am outspeeding, and Return is able to one-shot her first 2 Pokemon. Next is Steelix, and as strange as it is, Return does more damage than Ice Punch. Her ace misses Iron Tail, but it didn't even matter because my next Return knocks it out. So let's reflect on how Snorlax is doing so far. Honestly, this is not the dominant performance that I was expecting. Yes, it is getting through the game with an incredibly low time, but its level is also low, and it has had 6 resets. However, I do think that all of those resets were player error rather than Snorlax being a bad Pokemon. This is not a bad Pokemon, this is a very good Pokemon, let's be real. But I do want to defend my play just a little bit here by talking about something that I notice with Pokemon that have incredibly diverse move pools. In situations like this as the player, I sort of have a disadvantage because there is over-choice. Like, what is the correct strategy? Should I try to play more of a defensive Snorlax with a move like Amnesia or Defense Curl, maybe Rest and Snore? Should I go fully physical with moves like Return, Headbutt, not Dynamic Punch, Roll Out, Mud Slap, something like that? Should I do a mixed Snorlax with Headbutt and the punches? Or maybe a Snorlax with Hidden Power Ground? Also, I could play for the late game, thinking that Defense Curl and Rollout together are going to be an exceptional combo, or I could also play the current Snorlax that I'm doing with Belly Drum. There are so many choices, and I would love to see what other people pick as their first go-to moveset. For me, it just seemed like Belly Drum was too good to pass up, but maybe there's a better way, so I'll have to find out later on. Still, I do think it's interesting that in these challenges, a Pokemon like Snorlax, which is going to get a very fast time, I'm pretty sure it's going to get a very fast time. Pokemon like this tend to actually take longer to optimize because I have to figure out which strategy is correct. Whereas a Pokemon like Rhyhorn in Generation 1, which I did a little while ago, is much more straightforward because there are just limited options available. Well, let's get back into the playthrough. I pick up the Nevermelt Ice in Ice Path, and then I head into Blackthorn Gym. I don't expect Claire to give me any problems. After all, I have Ice Punch. She leads with Dragonair, I go for Ice Punch, and it gets the one hit. Okay, so I sweep through her first 3 Pokemon and make it all the way to her Kingdra. Against it, Return makes most sense. It hits with Dragon Breath, paralyzing me. Snorlax doesn't move, and it hits with Surf. Well, it didn't do very much. I finish it off with one more Return because I got a critical hit, and with that, I've completed the gym challenge. Now, Lugia and Lapras have times in the 1 hour and 25 minute range, and Lugia got to the rival before the league at 1 hour and 2 minutes. So right now it looks like Snorlax is lagging behind by about 6 minutes of time. Of course, it's worth noting this is a first playthrough, so Snorlax's results will improve from here. Funnily enough, I actually lose this battle against the rival. The Haunter outspeeds, uses Confuse Ray, and then it hits itself, and yeah, I guess Snorlax is good at both defeating its enemies and defeating itself. Instead of having Ice Punch in this fight, what if I have Earthquake instead? I'll still set up Belly Drum, and things get scary here once again because of Confusion. So that is a weakness of these Belly Drum strategies, because Confusion leaves you very vulnerable. I defeat the rival in this, my second attempt, and now I'm moving on to the league. Now I think there's a strategy here that I can use against Will and Koga. Belly Drum first turn, then Rest, then Sweep. But maybe I'm discounting the power of Confusion just a little bit too much because Snorlax does get confused here. I get lucky with Rest, heal, snap out of Confusion, and then manage to sweep through the rest of Will's team. Against Koga, this is much less of a worry because the Ariados is quite bad. After that, I sweep through the rest of his team and move on to Bruno. Of all of the Elite Four members, he is probably the one that Snorlax is going to struggle the most against. Luckily, I anticipate that the Hitmontop is probably going to go for Dig. I hit with Earthquake and knock it out in one turn. Hitmonlee's next, it outspeeds, hits High Jump Kick, doing almost half, and then I knock it out. Time for the Hitmonchan, but it has priority Mach Punch, so it moves first, doing some damage to Snorlax before I take it out. And now I only have half health remaining for Bruno's ace, Machamp. But it's really slow, actually slower than Snorlax, so I move first, hit Return, but it doesn't quite do enough damage. Machamp strikes back with Cross Chop, gets a critical hit, and Snorlax goes down. So what if I use Belly Drum on the Hitmontop and then sweep with Earthquake and Return? I got a little bit impatient here and I didn't heal, and as a result, Snorlax goes down again. But that's an easy fix, because if you look in the top right, you can see Hitmontop's move pool: Pursuit, Quick Attack, Dig, and Detect. Yeah, this thing is not going to be able to do very much to Snorlax, so after setting up Belly Drum, I can use Rest, and from there, I can hopefully sweep the rest of Bruno's team. I take the Hitmontop out with Return, the Hitmonlee high jump kicks Snorlax, taking it to half, and then I knock it out, Hitmonchan Mach Punches, and I take it down, and now it's time for the Machamp. But here, since I outspeed, I can take it out in one hit and move on to the Onix. Onix is fast, it moves first, but it's really weak, so I survive, and I knock it out with my own Earthquake. Okay, it's time for Karen. Now the Umbreon is a troll, I'm not going to knock it out with one hit, but if I just use Belly Drum, then I'm going to knock it out with one hit. I miss my next one because of a Sand Attack, I take it out on the next turn, and from here, I decide to rest on the Vileplume. After all, it's going to attack with Petal Dance, and Snorlax is just going to shrug that off. Once I wake up, I have green health, and from there, I can sweep through the remainder of Karen's team. Gengar goes down, Murkrow goes down, and Houndoom goes down. So Snorlax has made it all the way to Lance. So to this point, it has turned out that the right strategy against every single league member is to use Belly Drum, then to use Rest. And apparently this is what I have to do on Lance once again. For some reason, the Gyarados doesn't try to hit me with a second Hyper Beam, so yeah, it just uses like Surf and then I knock it out. Next is Dragonite, it outspeeds, paralyzing Snorlax. I knock it out with Return, moving on to the second Dragonite. This one misses a Blizzard, I go to sleep, healing the paralysis, and then once I wake up, I knock it out with Return. Aerodactyl's next. It gets a critical hit with Ancient Power, which actually does a lot. I use Return, which is resisted, but it still does enough damage because my attack stat is so ridiculous. Charizard hits a Hyper Beam, it doesn't do enough, I knock it out, and now it's time for Lance's ace. But in this generation, Outrage is a special move, it does very little damage, and I finish him off. So Snorlax defeats the league at a time of 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 58 seconds with 9 resets at level 51. Alright, so let's fast track our way through Kanto. Believe me, Erica, Sabrina, Misty, Surge, Brock, Blaine. I am just going to show this footage from the last Janine fight, and you'll notice that Snorlax does not have Return and instead it has Hyper Beam. Yeah, this was a misclick. I did not want to teach Snorlax Hyper Beam, but I think I looked away from the screen and just spammed A through it and taught it in the place of Return, so like, at least I did not forget Belly Drum. Here's the thing though, I actually picked up another TM for Headbutt in the department store when I was there buying the punches. So for blue, I'm just going to use Headbutt instead of Return and hope that it's enough. And then when I get to Mount Silver, I can fly back to Goldenrod City and pick up a second TM for Return. They actually are unlimited. You can get another copy every Sunday. By the way, I just really want to highlight this interaction here where I use Rest and then Pidgeot uses Mirror Move and falls asleep, giving me essentially a free heal. And because it went to sleep after me, I wake up first and hit it with Headbutt and knock it out. Perfect. Okay, let's sweep. Alakazam hits Psychic. It does lower my special defense, but I knock it out. Next is Rhydon. Earthquake takes it out. Gyarados is next. Headbutt takes it out. Headbutt takes the Exeggutor out. And Earthquake takes out the Arcanine. So Snorlax has done it. It's defeated all of the gym leaders in Kanto and cleared the path towards Red. Before fighting him though, I want to optimize for damage rounding, so I fight some wild encounters to level Snorlax up to level 60. After that I can use 10 rare candies, give Snorlax its thematic item, the leftovers, and now I'm ready. Red leads with Pikachu. Now here's a funny interaction. Pikachu's like, haha, I'm so smart. I'm going to lower this physical attacker's attack by using Charm. And then Snorlax is immediately like, yeah, but I'm going to use Belly Drum and just max out my attack stat anyways. So that is a swing of +8 attack in a single turn. And while this maxes out my attack stat, it almost hits the threshold for my attack, which is 999. I'm roughly only 40 points shy. After that setup, I use Rest to heal. After all, Pikachu can't do very much damage to me. It only has Quick Attack and then special moves. Now I tossed Snorlax Sleep Talk in the place of Earthquake. After all, Return is effective against all of Red's Pokemon. I go for Sleep Talk, it chooses Return and knocks the Pikachu out. I wake up against the Espeon and knock it out with Return, and now it's time for Red's Snorlax. I use first with my own maximized Return and take it down. So, what can he do to stop me? Well, Venusaur tries to set up Solar Beam, so I take it out for free. Charizard uses Flamethrower and gets a burn. Alright, that might do it, but no, it doesn't cut my attack enough. I still one-shot the lizard. All that's left is Blastoise. It sees that I have a lot of health, tries to set up Rain Dance, I hit with Return, and it takes it out. So Snorlax defeats Red on its first attempt. It clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 24 seconds, with 9 resets at level 70. And this took 6 hours and 1 minute of game time. Of course, though, I have to do another playthrough. Like, 9 resets with Snorlax? This is way too much. I think that I can shave a lot of time off of this playthrough. Also, a 1 hour and 37 minute time is slightly slower than Ampharos. And I definitely think that Snorlax is better than that. Like, it should probably be an S tier Pokemon, right? Well, to gain that distinction, I am going to need a way to get by the rivals Ghastly and Azalea Town without having a reset to Spite. But this is actually a fairly easy fix. If I train more in the early game, by the time that I defeat Bugsy, Snorlax will almost be level 20. I head back to a tiny bit of training in the wild to get level 20, and then at this level, Mudslap has a guaranteed 1 hit against the Ghastly. So this makes the fight completely consistent because the Ghastly moves first, uses Hypnosis. If it hits it, then it can't use Spite to lower Mudslap's PP. And if it misses, like it does in this fight, I just hit with Mudslap and knock it out. Okay, so Whitney's next, and yeah, just spam Headbutt here. It is much better than trying to set up Belly Drum or anything like that. Headbutt just one hits the Clefairy. That eliminates all chance that that thing does any shenanigans with Metronome. And then I have a 33% chance to 2-hit the Miltank with Headbutt, so might as well just go for that. After all, the Miltank can't knock you out with 3 turns of rollout. And now the wide open world of Johto presents many options to Snorlax, and I had to make a decision here. I am going to double down on the Belly Drum strategy and try to get through the entire game at a lower level. One key thing that can help with this is, of course, Hidden Power Ground. This trivializes the rival in Burned Tower, and then for Morty I optimized this run so that Snorlax has exactly 42 speed before the Ghastly. This means I outspeed and knock it out, and it can't set up Curse. Then the second Haunter will set up Curse and I'll take no damage from it, and then I'm going to one-hit the Gengar with Hidden Power Ground, and Hypnosis has no chance of stopping me because I have a Mint Berry. So yeah, Morty is trivial now. Still no resets with Snorlax. This is going really well. However, I also want to avoid resets at Chuck, so I'm going to go and face the Rocket Hideout next, and then take Price on. After all, he is a joke, and by the end of this fight, Snorlax is level 35. There's extra experience through the gym trainers in Chuck's gym, and that brings it up to level 36 before the Primeape. And this is the perfect level for Snorlax because now it has 52 speed, so it has 1 more speed than Poliwrath. In this case, my damage range gives me a 2-hit on the Poliwrath, but I actually score a lucky critical hit here, so I knock it out in 1 turn. Perfect. Next is Jasmine, but Hidden Power Ground trivializes her. And then I use Ice Punch and actually Body Slam to defeat Claire. I figured that the 30% chance to paralyze here is just a nice bonus. After all, Return and Body Slam are both 2 hits, so like the status condition just makes things more reliable. The rival before the league is easy because I have Belly Drum, and with that, I've made it to Will with no resets. So last time I used Belly Drum here, and that's overkill. Return has a guaranteed 1-hit on 3 of his 5 Pokemon, so just attack and win. Koga's next, and yeah, just attack and win here once again. But then before Bruno, I make a major change. Snorlax is currently level 48, and I am going to use rare candies to take it all the way up to level 54, as well as using the TM for rest so that Snorlax has a way to recover health. These extra levels give Snorlax more capable defenses, as well as making it able to outspeed all of the Pokemon on Bruno's team except the Hitmonlee. Of course, the Hitmonchan is going to hit me with Mach Punch, but that's okay, because I can survive its hit, and once it goes down, I sweep through his final 2 Pokemon, and Snorlax moves on to Karen with no resets. Against her, there is only one inconsistency, and that is the fact that Snorlax cannot one-shot the Umbreon. As a result, it uses Sand Attack, and now I can miss, which is the problem. I make it past the Vileplume onto the Gengar, and yeah, here's where things fall apart. It uses Curse on me, which is its only way to deal damage to me, and then Earthquake misses, Gengar uses Spite, and once again, Snorlax has lost because it ran out of PP. However, if I just don't miss my Earthquake, I knock the Gengar out, and with that, I've made it to Lance. I use Belly Drum in the same way that I did last time, and I take a first attempt victory over him. Now in Kanto, it's time to switch things up just a little bit, because I'm going to pick up the TM for Curse. And with the league out of the way, like, yes, I have to fight Blue, but he's very easy, even with a level 62 Snorlax. And then after I use all my rare candies, Snorlax is at level 65. So that's 5 levels lower for Red. So as I was recording voiceover for this video, I could not figure out why I used Curse against the Snorlax, because this is just slower than using Belly Drum against the Pikachu. But here's why. I went back and tried the fight against Red again, but it turns out his Snorlax survives if you use Belly Drum at this level. And that fight that I tried actually resulted in a loss, so it turns out that Curse is actually the best strategy for Snorlax to get by Red with. As a result, it clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 44 seconds, with one reset at level 66, and this took 5 hours and 51 minutes of game time. So unfortunately for Snorlax, it is slightly slower than Espeon, and much slower than both Lugia and Lapras. However, it did have a very good performance, and today it earns itself the top spot in the A tier. Like, subscribe, ring the chime echo, and comment because I gotta read them all. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.